Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 key levers to unlocking fixed ops profitability. Ted, margins are tightening and customer expectations are rising, but the opportunity in fixed ops has never been bigger.
That's right. And we're really honored, Sarah, to have two great colleagues and friends of the fixed ops community. Euwart Anderson, who's Executive Vice President, General Manager at Vehlo, the big name now in fixed operations and growing. And Bobby Wilcox, who's with us as well. First time on the roundtable for Bobby. Bobby and Euwart, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Euwart, very timely discussion today. Profitability, as we know, isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things faster and smarter and more consistently. So really grateful that you could both join us here today for this discussion.
Yeah, we're excited to. The timing's just right? We're toward the end of the year and planning for 2026. Every dealer's in that space. So we want to make sure we get the intel out that's going to help them do that well.
I know we discussed in the green room briefly. You might have a stat or two you want to share with the audience before we get rolling today.
Sure. Yeah, two things come to mind, Ted, specifically that relate to this particular topic, and have ultimately driven us to develop, these five levers, if you will. Number one, since we're toward the end of the year, we've got enough of a forecast that it's going to be fairly accurate as it relates to what dealer profits are going to look like. JD Power put out a study through Auto News, and ultimately, if you compare 2024 to 2025, the profits for dealers we're at about 28 billion from an industry perspective. They're down to 22 billion forecasted for 2025. You're talking about a $6 billion profitability hit in 2024 versus 25. Yeah, and this is coming off highs from kind of post COVID profitability accelerants where margins were really high. And to top that off, right, used car profitability is actually up about 10%, which is interesting. New car profitability is up about 7%. So there are some dealers that are identifying ways to take advantage of that, but that's mostly in the luxury brand space, right? Alternatively, the vast majority, domestic brands, right? Those are the majority of our franchise dealers. Roughly, they're down 4.8% in profitability.
Wow. Well,
So really material impacts on the profitability side, and we all know that fixed ops is a big driver of that profitability in well-run dealerships.
Sarah, on the dealership side, a lot of the things that you were just covered are covered by the Velo brands, and the dealers will be familiar with those names: Dealer Logics, Text to Drive, Rapid Recon, among others. You were congratulations on the two newest members of the Velo family, Dealer Pay, great friends of the Roundtable,
Mhm.
and also Total Customer Connect. I think those are the right names.
That's right. That's right. We're excited to add Dealer Pay and TCC, as we call them, Total Customer Connect, to the family, and they fit very, very well into our suite of products. And now the next big job for us is to bring them into the fold from an integration perspective and make sure that they align and we get all the value that we bought them for. Which is what the market has gleaned from them already. That's why their growth has been so stellar into the other products so that dealers can have all in one experience more and more every day.
If I could follow up with you, Ewart, and then Bobby, leadership drives profit. A lot of these things start at the top. If you want to maybe share some of your thoughts on that, dealer culture has been a big, hot, dominant motivator here at the roundtable, and
Mhm.
I know you've got some insights there.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Was it me or you?
Go for it, Bobby.
Yeah, leadership, 100%. I liked what you said about culture, right? And I think a lot of dealerships kind of they missed the mark on culture. And I think it's kind of a misdirected leadership, whereas they don't feel as though they should be spending enough time influencing the thinking instead of demanding the results. Right? It's a results-driven world, and it's really
Mm.
easy as a leader. You go out and you demand the results, but you don't coach the why to your people. Everybody knows the what, everybody can know the what, but if you fail to coach the why, then you're finding that you're always going to have to manage the what, right? So I think really delivering a culture where you have coached the why and you influence the thinking leaders will start realizing that things happen in their dealerships by themselves. The why is never above anybody's pay grade. And I think that's where they missed the mark.
Euwart, this is an incredible topic, and talking a little bit more in the leadership realm. This is a struggle sometimes for dealerships when you're talking about setting expectations, measuring performance.
Mhm.
So what are some best practices that you're seeing that really help the shop there?
Yeah, I think I'll actually take a big step back on this topic and be really clear about where this starts. So it starts when you hire someone, right? So the way that dealers hire is very much so a reflection of a leadership team's culture, right? And the culture of that team has to inform the hiring process from the beginning, from the types of profiles you're looking for, from the types of characteristics and the individuals that will serve your customers, that will be the technicians in your bay, that will be the parts managers and parts specialists in your parts department, like that will manage your team on a day-to-day basis. And that the best practice around hiring, not just skill and a decent resume, that Joey Bag of Donuts worked at so and so Ford or Chevy for 20 years, but that they also had a track record of cultural success and results driven outcomes that they can prove and that you can confirm. So I think as a best practice, I'd go right back to the very beginning of the process, which is how you hire. And throughout, I'd say the second best practice of mention is going to be compensation plans that drive the behaviors you want to see. So you'll notice so far we've hit two, and I haven't talked about the tools they're using in software, because at the end of the day, the tools that we provide and the platforms that we service our dealers with, that drive customer experience, that drive ease of use for the internal users, those are really kind of a means to an end. The culture has to precede that. The comp plan modeling and the behavior you want to drive and the clarity around that behavior has to be clear first, and then everything else kind of follows, right? Like those are the underpinnings of driving and supporting the actual leadership, that's going to ultimately drive that profitability through culture, if that makes sense. Beyond that, I'd say a lot of the best practices tactically, those are found and driven in, to my point earlier, in the actual products, right? Whether that's identifying a set of key metrics that are important to the dealer, and then measuring those on a daily basis, weekly basis, and then basically rewarding and recognizing and holding people accountable, to hitting those on an ongoing track.
Lots of incredible information, Ewart, and you're so right. The culture going all the way back to the beginning is really important in this process. And Bobby, one of the pieces that is really interesting has also been around time and the speed that a lot of this is happening in the dealership. And we all have those days where customers are coming in and maybe it's not going totally according to plan in the scheduler, but then there's a lot of opportunities that are available for dealerships when they focus on speed and they focus on some of those pieces like communication. Can you share with us some of those best practices that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think in today's climate, with just dealing with customers in general, when you have all the information known to mankind in the palm of your hand, right? I feel like technology in and of itself has created an impatience for information, right?
Right.
So, if the car business, needs to keep up, and customers, there's an expectation that they be communicated with in a timely fashion. And that goes with, if you pulled up on the service lane, are we using quarter time? Are they being communicated with through whatever app or whatever text message they got from the automated system? On the flip side of that, their internal tools, so, with our recon space, that's a huge thing too, because your age of inventory is predicated on how fast you can get cars through your process. So it's trickled its way. The best practices, yeah, there's a sense of urgency with today's customers, as well as the selling climate. How fast can we get cars frontline ready? How fast can you get a customer through the service drive? And let's leverage the technology to put our systems on rails to cater to what's now the impatience of information to the customers. So 100%.
And I think a lot of that goes back to it seems our whole world is speeding up. Everything is moving a lot
Mm,
faster, Bobby. Um,
Mhm.
those customer expectations are driving it, and dealers are looking for efficiencies. And I think that's really where the suite of products that you have, really comes into play. Um, Bobby, let me ask you about consistency because that
Mhm.
creates predictability. We're all customers. We like predictability. Speak to us about that as well, if you can go a little further on that.
Yeah, it's huge, and it falls back to what I said previously. If you've done a good job of influencing the thinking with your people, and I coach a lot of dealerships, especially in the recon space. But we all know, it's a very short conversation with, let's say, a variable ops manager. The concept of velocity and turn, right? But does your technician back in the shop, who is the people who actually make recon happen, do they know the why? Do they know why they are, I got to hurry up. I always got these managers coming around. They want their cars yesterday, and it's the car business. Well, it's not that they're impatient managers. There's an absolute science as to why it makes sense. You got to make sure that trickles down to your people, even if it's just service lane urgency. A lot of the consistency has to do with how well, as a leader, did you convey to your people the why we do things. Because if you spend more time influencing the thinking, you're going to find you spend less time managing people along the way. I always love it. A good indication of how you are doing as a leader is how your business runs in your absence. So
mhm.
coach your people, coach the why, and you'll discover things will start to happen by themselves.
That's right.
And that's
That's
where
right. Yeah,
consistency
I
comes
think
in.
that the only thing I'd add to that too, Bobby, organically is when you look at how dealers are creating consistency, a lot of that is done within the realm of the systems they use and the framework they set. But I'd say that more often than not, when we show up at dealerships, and I'll just speak for myself. When I show up at dealerships, there's an equal number of instances where a technician or an advisor or even a service manager at times might say, I don't know why we're doing it this way. And I think the visuals, the artifacts, the clarity, the culture, going back to that, like all of those things have to support the why. Like they have to feel like they're part of the full engine of the dealership. And I think for leaders it's really easy for them to lose sight of that because they themselves have the right altitude to where they can see the whole engine itself, right? So they're not concerned about the why, but they don't recognize that not everyone has that same altitude. So everyone in the dealership has to be brought into that fold to attain that predictability. Like it's reliable systems being the underpinning, but it all goes back. Like these are compounding levers, not levers you can basically deploy out of order, I guess is my point.
And Bobby, as you were speaking of this, just when he's talking about these levers and he's talking about some of these opportunities that dealerships have, if you're thinking of what the examples he gave, dealers that are struggling with profitability and they need to improve these pieces, visibility is a big aspect of what really fuels that
Mhm.
accountability. So could you share with us, a little bit more about what are dealers doing that can really improve that process and really help into that visibility?
Well, the old adage, if you can't measure it, you can't grow it, right? You got to know where you're at. And, a lot of our tools and these tools used in dealerships are not necessarily micromanaging tools, right? They actually eliminate the finger pointing, but you really got to go to your key point indicators and see where we're at so you know what to coach. And, even with the time components with service drive tools, service lane tools, or our recon tools, dealerships are really the KPI metrics and the how are we doing is a good stepping stone to where we're at with when it comes where you got to start with coaching your people and trying to achieve those results.
I like that a whole lot.
Real time is key.
If I can follow up, gentlemen, and Ewart, let me come to you on the
Mhm.
customer experience and retention and profit. A lot of the things, some of the brands that you've added to the Velo family, especially recently, they help build transparency and repeat business, and you make it easier for the customer to do business. And I think in today's modern dealership world, where you're focused on the right things, the culture, the career path of the employees first, talk to us about the importance of making it easy for for the customer and the employees as well.
I'm so glad you said that, Ted. That way. That was certainly something I intended to bring up here explicitly. So the experience piece, it does have two layers. One is the customer or the consumer, and then the other is the employee. And the idea here is that we're driving both of those experiences toward retention, right? The retention of staff, because all turnovers at an all time high still. Like dealers are struggling to keep good people, and in order to keep that knowledge and that culture and that work ethic, you need time with those people. If you have constant turnover, it doesn't work. So similarly, if you're losing customers left and right because of a poor experience, or because they have a neutral experience, you know Joey down the road will give them more than a neutral experience. So both experiences have to be optimal, and our systems are geared toward that ease of use for the internal user, but then also for customer retention and resurgence and return of those customers, if not on a steady cadence, on an increased cadence. Whether that's through recall automation engagement, or if it's through sending them happy anniversary, happy birthday messages from the dealership, like on behalf of their advisor, like whatever that automation looks like, we're able to do that in our system, and we see that those touches drive and enhance customer loyalty over time. We see overall scores of customer satisfaction increase. We see, I think, trust increase, and that shows up in the form of additionally, recommended maintenance being accepted by the customer because they believe in what they're being prompted to tackle, et cetera. So our tools, whether it's text to drive, Dealer Logics, eAdvisor, or the new acquisitions, as you mentioned, in Dealer Pay, driving an optimal integrated payments experience that they can trust, and TCC, being able to offer some of that ongoing, live customer touch through a variety of, BDC augmentation services, Service Connect, SaaS products, et cetera. Like we're really, gearing ourselves to be that best in class experience on both fronts, and dealers will benefit from that on each side of the personnel equation.
Bobby, this is an exciting time to be in our industry. These last couple years with some of the things that Ewart is describing now, I mean, this has really elevated the game like no other time before.
Oh, 100%. I wish I had these tools at my disposal back when I was in the weeds, right? 100%. It really just takes it next level. And, especially with the end user or the end beneficiary being our customers. And then, there's nothing wrong with making it easier for the people, the employees driving a process, and making their lives easier. There's where, that in and of itself will lend itself to more consistency and getting it right for the customer every time.
Ewart, anything you'd like to add in closing? Here we are, we're midway through the fourth quarter. Dealers, managers are making their plans now for the new year, okay, for what's going to happen just ahead. You've got Velo very well positioned, and dealers who are with you very well positioned for the new year. What's ahead? And I know you're also going to be in later in January, early February at the NADA as well.
We will. We're excited about that too. I'd say just to maybe round us out, and reiterate. I think for us, these five levers are core to what we do. The cultural piece behind leadership, driving the profitability is key. Creating that speed, within your processes and to market is critical. And then the consistency and the visibility, ultimately creating results, and the customer experience being a focus to drive profitability. Like those five levers, I just really want to reiterate that for those that happen to watch this episode. And I really hope that you challenge yourselves and you get out of the status quo and you seek us out. This isn't about selling you software; it's about making you successful and making sure your profitability is maximized. So we're happy to partner with you and share information as we can. Bobby's part of the key team that does that. He's one of our best at doing it, as a matter of fact, and that's why he's here on this particular episode at NADA. To your point, Ted, we're stoked to bring the two new companies to the fold in Dealer Pay and Total Customer Connect, TCC, into our booth. We'll have one of our largest presences from a footprint perspective. We got a key spot NADA. We'll be front and center, and really excited to engage. We'll have a great NADA show special, if you will, and you'll have to show up to find out what that is.
All right. And we look forward to joining you and being there for that as well. Sarah, again, exciting times, and this technology second to none.
It is, Ted, and the dealers who really win in fixed ops, they all share one trait, and that's discipline. And all of these pieces, as Euwart was saying, are really the key levers to unlocking the fixed ops profitability.
For our audience, if you're going to be headed out to NADA in the next few months, they'll be at booth number 2911W. That's Vehlo. And Euwart, if our audience wants to learn more about Vehlo and the many products that now make up that suite of Vehlo family, where's the best place we can direct the audience?
Sure, Ted. I'd suggest going to vehlo.com/dealership. So it's VEHLO.com/dealership.
All right. Well, on behalf of the Roundtable, Bobby, great meeting you. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more from you and
Thank you.
see a lot more of you. And congratulations, Bobby, on all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
With
Appreciate
Vehlo.
it.
And Euwart, again, thank you for all you do for the dealership community. And, we keep meeting like this a couple times a year. I can't wait to see what you're going to say in another month or two. Okay, what we have in store. So exciting times, Euwart.
There are certainly some gems coming out that I think the dealership body will be pretty excited about.
Everybody, go to velo.com/dealership to learn more about Vehlo and the family of products they've got there. Gentlemen, on behalf of the Fixed Ops Roundtable, Sarah and I want to wish you and your families and the Vehlo family a happy Thanksgiving later on next week. And again, thank you for all you do.
Same to you guys.
All right. Vehlo, everybody, here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.